I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome to the June 4th, 2007 Lowell Planning Board meeting. First matter on our agenda tonight, we have minutes to be approved by our previous hearings. We'll start with, we have minutes from the April 2nd, 2007 minutes to be considered by the board. Board members have any corrections?
I have a correction, Mr. Chairman. On page 5, a little more than halfway down, I think it's just a typo. It's my statement, with this plan that we have in front of us, does this include the old Jones Fabric building? It was obviously the Jones Fabric building, the old Jones Fabrics over on Western Ave.
So what correction are you?
Well, it should be
Correct.
Jones
Okay.
Fabric, not
Okay,
Jones. that's
gotcha.
all.
You have any others, Mr. Lockhart?
Oh, yeah, and there was another one on
Page 6.
page 8, about the second paragraph down. There's an incomplete sentence here, and I don't recall exactly what I said, but it says, the sentence starts out, think we have received substantial information that this is a safe road, and then the next sentence is cut short, says, I don't think this is an appropriate, and I don't remember what I said, but there's something missing there.
And that was on, which project was that?
Page 8, that
Yeah,
was
I'm just trying to-
Middlesex Street, I believe.
Okay. So can we amend it with the word thinking, but I think we have received substantial information that this is a safe road, and you want to cross out the balance of that statement?
Yeah, let's just take it off,
Okay.
but, yeah.
Understand that, James? I don't think this is,
That's fine
and
with me.
if you're not sure what it is, might as well delete it. Any other, Mr. Lockhart, any other questions you have?
No, not on
What
this.
about,
Are we doing all three?
we'll do this one first, this page, it's the same one. This is on the same set of minutes.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I
On,
didn't see there's more. Oh, yeah, okay.
that's on page, what, page 6?
Page 6, up at the top, the second statement says R. Linehan. It should be R. Lockhart. I didn't notice that.
You see what he means on that, James? Yes. Okay. I think there's a couple other typos in regards to that later on in the,
Yeah, the
In-
third.
okay. Mr. Lockhart, do you have any other amendments?
Not on those
Okay.
minutes.
Any other board members have any other amendments to the minutes on April 2? Hearing none, I just have a couple. I believe on page 4, under myself, this notes that you're all in favor of the extension of the artist overlay district, and then we start to say approximately. I think I said something like there's approximately so many signatures, but I think we just cross it off where it says approximately, because I had all the people who were present get up and give their names for the record, so we could just eliminate that approximately. And I did have one other, on page 8, down the bottom, has the motion, 3 board members voted in favor of the project and 2 board members voted against. The motion failed to obtain the 4 votes required for the special permit. I know in everywhere else, we usually put down who made the vote, and that indication, I don't see which board members voted which way. So if we could correct it for the record. Okay, so the 2 people who voted against it was Mr. Genman and myself. And therefore, the people who voted for it would be Mr. Clermont, Mr. Lockhart, and Mr. Fischett. Board members agree to that change?
Yes.
Okay, just, we have the vote in there, but don't have the exact members, which way they voted, if we can change that, James? Okay. Anybody else having any? If not, we could move that we accept the April 2nd, 2007 minutes as amended.
Motion to approve as amended.
Do I hear the second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. April 2nd, approved as amended, excuse me. Moving on to the April 19th, 2007 minutes. Any board members have any corrections there?
I have one, Mr. Chairman, on page 11.
Okay.
Again, there's an R. Linehan in 3 places. And it should be my name.
Page 8.
Oh, and there's one on page 8 as well, and page 2. Oh, yeah, I missed.
You see that, James, a couple times with,
Page
I
2,
know you
page
put-
8, and page 11.
you have R for Rich, but you put his first name and my last name.
Some on page 7, too.
So we got page 2, halfway down, it says R. Linehan. Page,
7.
I'm going in order here, yeah, page 7, the 3 at the bottom, and then one on page 8. And then you have, on page 11, you have 3 more that are R. Linehan, that should be R. Lockhart. You see those, Rich?
Yeah, there's one
Right,
there.
yeah.
I do, yeah. Let's see.
See these on page 11?
Right
You
here.
already have them outlined,
I
yeah?
got 'em marked.
Okay. Any other board members have any?
That's all I got there.
2, 4, 7, 8, I think, okay. 2. Oh. I have one, on page 4, under my comment, the very last line, did you review the note from the engineer? He noted that the underground detention system, if a system can be put in, he recommends that the units should not be built. I think, yeah, if the system cannot be put in, he recommends it be not be built. So I think it's just, we left out the word not there. And then I know we did pick that up on the motion to approve, where, because I know when we got the quick review from James after that meeting, we put in the city engineer part. So we have it on, the motion's correct, James, remember? Yes. Okay, so that's the only thing there. I think we just need that little word not, which was probably omitted. Besides that, I have no other corrections. Hearing none from the other board members, entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve as amended.
Motion's made.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, chair votes yes. The April 19th minutes are approved as amended. Then we have the May 7th, 2007 minutes.
I have a correction.
What page would that be, Mr. Lockhart?
Page 5, the very bottom paragraph. In the middle of the paragraph, I made this statement, that this sentence is wrong. It's actually kind of humorous. It says, I looked at all the individual houses along the neighborhood, and virtually every house along there is along the street. And that's not what I said. Said something to the effect that virtually every house along there has front steps to the sidewalk with a small overhanging porch, something to that effect. That's all.
Excuse me, James, you understand what correction you want to put in? Yes. Okay. Any other board members have any corrections for the the May 7th meeting? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, a motion to approve. Yeah, I was gonna say. Motion to approve,
as amended.
okay.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving along, we have 2 public hearings tonight. Both are from Perry Street, and both have been continued from previous meetings. The first public hearing is a site plan and a special permit at 76-80 Roger Street, which is known as the old Mother Hubbard Building. This matter was continued from our May 7th, 2007 meeting. The Lowell Planning Board will review an application by Diane and Scott O'Brien and Rogers and Perry LLC for special permit and site plan review for the development of the property located at the above address. The proposal includes the demolition of the existing Old Mother Hubbard Mill Building on site and the construction of 35 townhouse-style housing units. The proposal is located on 2.172 area lot with 2,703 square foot per unit in the traditional neighborhood mixed-use zoning district. The project site is at the corner of Perry and Roger Street, and the development is accessed via a driveway off the Roger Street. The project requires special permit review under Article 12 under the Table of Uses and site plan review under Section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. The hearings will be held concurrently. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 81 Bridge Street, Lowell, representing Rogers and Perry LLC, who is the proposed developer. With me tonight, once again, is Tom Scott, and his sister Diane O'Brien, Jerry Foley, who is our project architect and engineer, Fran Sagendorf and Bill Topia, who are our consultants. As a result of comments made at the last meeting, we have revised and made numerous changes to our plans, and I will go through them, and then I'll turn it over to Jerry to explain what he's done. But first, we have reduced the number of units from 35 down to 34. We have also reconfigured the layout of the buildings, and as the plan shows, we have Building C, which consists of 4 units, that is now facing Rogers Street, and we also have the end unit of Building F facing Rogers Street. All the units facing Perry Street now have a porch, stairs, and a little roof over the porch, and they are now in a straight line along Perry Street as suggested. We have also provided a second means of access and egress along the side of Perry Street. We are proposing a gate be placed on at that and only be used for emergency purposes based on comments we've had with the neighbors in surrounding this proposed development. They would like to avoid any additional entrances coming in or off Perry Street. But it's designed, if the board feels that it has to be, we don't have a problem. But the way we have it designed is with a gate for emergency vehicles. Also, we also have provided you with floor plans of the units, and as you can see, we've turned them around so the living room would be facing out to Perry Street and the kitchen would be in the back. I just want to point out that buildings A and C will not have any lofts up above the second story. I have also discussed with my clients the comments we received from the planning department regarding some additional steps to be taken as far as the plans are concerned. As to the sidewalk, I went and looked at it myself. I think the sidewalk on Rogers Street is in pretty good shape. As to the sidewalk on Perry Street, it's there up to that point where the building comes in for parking. We have no problem in lifting the existing granite and redoing that sidewalk, and then also extending it up further to cover the whole site so that you have a streetscape along Perry Street. Like I said, on the emergency fire access, we'd like to keep it that way with a gate, but if the board would like it to be open, we don't have a problem with that. We would like to, as far as the gate is concerned, we have no problem in putting in a wrought iron gate or something of similar material, depending on what we can acquire. Trash pickup, I think I stated at the last meeting that it would be private because it's the close proximity of this project to the river. We wouldn't want any dumpsters out there. So all the trash pickup would be private. Utilities, they will be located in an area that can't be seen from the street. And I think that would be, we can provide the DPD with a copy of that prior to construction. As to the design of the building and the materials, I'm going to I'll let Jerry answer that, because I don't know what the materials would be, but he's going to be the architect, so we can answer that question. And then as far as the curb cut, I think there's a little bit of confusion, because I know that under zoning TMU, the maximum curb cut is 24 feet, but there also is a note in the zoning under 6.1.11, which says minimum width of entry drive right-of-way for access to a multi-family development shall be 35 feet. So there is some ambiguity there, and I think what we did is to provide that 35 feet coming in based on that provision. But I think this call would probably be the building commissioner's call. So if you were going to approve this project, subject to either us obtaining a variance for that curb cut or approval from the building department, I think that would be acceptable to us. I think this new plan incorporates the suggestions that the board made at the last meeting, and like the last time, we're here to answer any further questions. I'll turn it over to Jerry. He can go over the engineering and what's behind these new changes.
Just a couple of quick things. Subsequent to
Can you hear me now? Subsequent to the submittal, we decided to do a couple of other things. What we did not include with the submittal a couple of weeks ago were rear elevations of the building, so I do want to give those to you right now if I could. And also, we didn't have enough time to meet the deadline and also have a rendering of that corner. So we've done that as well. I'd also like to call your attention to the zoning chart on drawing C2. A couple of quick changes just on the zoning chart that were missed on the submittal with respect to the front yard offset. The plan you have still says 10 feet. It's no longer 10 feet as a result of the changes that we made, specifically due to the fact that we moved this corner building closer to Perry Street, so now it's 5.5 feet. And the other issue was the building height. The proposed building height on the previous plan was 45 feet, it's now 38. And I've got revised drawings to give you that address that. I think I have 5 copies there. I think Attorney Flood described in a nutshell pretty much what the changes were. They were pretty straightforward. I guess the biggest change here is the fact that there was a comment to wrap the building around the corner. The style of these buildings necessitating a garage under in the back, the only way we could really do that was to just take this building and turn it. So now what we've done is we've come up with a more linear form to the layout, and we held lines that are parallel or perpendicular to both Perry Street and to Rogers Street. Beyond that, there were a couple of engineering things that needed to be changed because of this revision. Because we now have this little stub of a driveway area that we didn't have on the previous submittal, we had to run utilities up here underground, pick up the drainage, the gas, the water, the sewer. So those are reflected on drawing C4. I've highlighted them here. The water will still come in off of Perry Street. It'll dead end down here into the mailroom where there's a riser. There'll be a hydrant down here. It'll go the entire length of the driveway and tie back into Rogers Street, so we'll have a completed loop. The electrical will come off an existing utility pole out here. It'll run underneath the emergency access to a transformer pad located here. The previous plan, it was located on the other side. And as far as the sewer, water, and drainage, we meet the minimum separations for those. There were some conflicts down here. This is a rather busy area for utilities and underground drainage and sewer. So as a result of that, we have another catch basin that we put in right here that goes to a separate water quality inlet. So we now have 2 locations where the drainage water ties in. Beyond that, we still have a stormwater detention area which picks up the drainage beyond this catch basin here for this parking lot. We have more parking spaces than zoning code requires by a number of 10, which we can use for snow storage during winter months when necessary. Stormwater detention, the walking trail, the loop that's lit and landscaped. You'll notice also that this reconfiguration got a little tighter this way because we were able to nudge the buildings closer and create a little more space in the backyard along the power company property. And as far as the building itself goes, without getting into the floor plans, just to give you a quick look at what we're looking at the corner. This is a little bit deceiving because you'll note on the site plan that we show an existing tree there at the corner, which is rather large, that we'd like to keep. But when we put it into this rendering, it hides the building, so we decided to get rid of it for the purposes of this rendering, so you can see the building. So we've paid particular attention to this corner a little bit, facing it back out to the neighborhood, getting it close to the street. Just note also that the entrances, due to elevation restrictions, the entrances along Rogers Street are split entry entrances, because when we had people exiting at the first level up here, the stairs were just too long to get down. So we accommodated that by going downstairs internally, much like you would in a split entry house, and then coming out at a lower elevation so you don't have these long stairs going up to the building. Other than that, I think that's everything. I did meet with Captain Weber to go over the design this morning. He indicated that he was in favor of the design. I might also just quickly show you that the layout of the driveways was changed from the previous. So we have these individual driveways, and they're not consistent on this drawing for the simple reason that it reflects now more what's going on inside the building with respect to where stairwells are versus entry doors. And Captain Weber requested that these two buildings in particular be arranged so that the driveways are on the outside here to prevent any interference with a possible car if and when he ever has to get in through here.
Anything else?
I can answer some questions if you have them.
Okay. Attorney Flood, anybody else on behalf of the applicant want to speak before I turn it over to the public?
No.
At this point in time, anybody like to speak in favor? Please come to the microphone and state your name and address, please. Anybody in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. I'll turn the portion over to anybody who'd like to speak in opposition. Come to the microphone, please, and state your name and address, please.
My name is Ann Cavanaugh, and I live at 136 Hank Street in Lowell. I oppose the site plan and special permit approval of 7680 Rogers Street, referred to as condominiums at Concord Crossing. But first, let me say I really appreciate the changes and improvements made by the developer of the property since the last meeting, and I simply just have additional suggestions or comments. I think it would be great if hardy plank siding or some substantial roofline, corner base, and window trim elements were used for the exterior of the units, and perhaps they are. I just can't see from where I'm sitting and haven't seen details of the facades of the buildings, but I think it's fantastic that they've added a little porch, steps, and entrances that face the street in that very nice-looking plan. If vinyl siding is used, there is an example of a vinyl-sided home on Park Avenue East in Lower Belvedere, which shows excellent large trim elements and details that they might like to look at, but I'm sure there are lots of examples of them around. I hope that more than one exterior paint color or vinyl clapboard color will be considered and used to break up the blocks of units in some fashion. Not a rainbow of colors, but maybe just a subtle variety to break it up a bit. This might improve the appearance of the townhouses from the streets. They mentioned the exterior sidewalks on Rogers and Perry Streets, and I also suggest that on the interior of the property, perhaps at least a change in street grade materials inside the complex. Perhaps they're already included, to change from asphalt to cement cobbles, or another material to break up the expanse of drive to calm traffic, to indicate pedestrian ways as opposed to driveways, or private ways as opposed to public ways. I'm glad the landscape features are increased. I'm glad that a 6-foot stockade fence will exist between the units and National Grid's property, and I would suggest that the fence have an additional 2-foot trellised header added to make it an 8-foot tall fence. I know that the zoning code allows for these subdividable lots next to National Grid's property, but the code doesn't take in the abutting elements like power lines. So even though it's great to see 2 fewer units overall, I still think the arrangement of units close to the grid may require some thought on the fence. The traffic on Rogers Street is typically busy morning and early evenings and can become backlogged, gridlocked, I guess you might say, almost up to this property line beginning in late afternoon on weekdays. But I understand that the Perry Street curb cut will be for emergency use. And they mentioned regular trash pickup and recycling pickup. And I mentioned that as a resident near Rogers Fort Hill Park, urban parks, and property like National Grid's, these land corridors that sort of present a sort of public, sort of private space can generally attract trash. So it's just something to keep in mind. We just recently did a park cleanup along Park Avenue west, across condominium and apartment complexes. It can tend to happen. Let's see. And finally, I guess I just wish that the site plan had incorporated some elements of the history of the old Mother Hubbard building. I don't know, granite lintels, if they existed there, brick or some other salvage material when the mill is torn down, merely because it had an historical significance. I don't know if any remnant materials could be in any way incorporated into the landscape plan, but it might have been a nice creative nod to the past use of the site. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to any questions and concerns from the board members. Mr. Fischett, you want to start tonight?
May.
Thank you.
I certainly want to commend the petitioner for the changes. I wish, actually, I wish the previous hearing had been televised, because if anybody was following this, you can appreciate the process to get to where we are this evening. So to be commended for taking into account the suggestions from this board. I have a couple things that I'd like to discuss relative to the drives. The prior meetings, we really spent a lot of time discussing the facades and facing on Perry Street and turning the units onto Roger Street, which, we incorporated all of that into the plan. And then there was some question relative to the access and egress to the site. I sat out there this morning, matter of fact. I sat out there for 45 minutes, from 7:30 till 8:15. And I did ask for a copy of the traffic study that was performed, and I know the city's traffic engineer had some comments, and actually, I got to give him some credit, because he picked up something on the traffic study that was inaccurate. I will say that overall, I think the counts are pretty accurate regarding peak times and what I witnessed out there. I know the planning department, and comments from the planning department, would prefer to have access onto Perry Street, but I know the neighbors were opposed to having the access on Perry, and I know, I believe, even the petitioner as well, the applicant. Sitting out there this morning, what I witnessed was a bad situation from that variety store diagonally across from Perry Street. I almost saw 3 accidents in the time that I was there. So from that standpoint, I really, I've changed my opinion on what I thought was probably the way to go on this, and I guess I would prefer to see the main entrance be on Roger Street at this point. What I am concerned about, though, is the distance. Where I was sitting right now is where the landscape material is. I'll let that pass. Where the landscape material is located. And I was trying to get my bearings from where that telephone pole is sitting when I'm looking towards Perry Street, and I saw it on the plan. You're basically that telephone pole is staying, I gather that's correct from the plans, and that's basically where your entrance is at that point?
Yeah, on the original plan, the pole was going to be relocated.
Right.
But the entrance shifted this way, so now it can stay where it is.
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, you're getting further away from Perry Street, which was part of the concern. You're getting further away from that variety store. I saw some horrendous driving out there, and I know we can't control that, but that was just a bad situation over there. I prefer to see the, I like having the Perry Street as an option for people, though. And I will defer to further comments from fellow board members, but I like the idea of just having the option available to the residents, whether they want to exit or enter there. I did notice on Perry Street, several of the homes that have the parking restriction signs, they have a driveway, but there were no cars parked in the driveway, and there were cars parked on the street. Even before those units were put in with a church, I was a member of this citywide neighborhood group, and we used to meet in the basement of that church, and there was always cars parked on Perry Street. And I understand the concern of your traffic engineer, and I think to clarify, because I thought I picked up some confusion between the city traffic engineer, the concern was pulling out onto Perry Street may be difficult to negotiate that with cars parked on there and the narrowness of the egress trying to pull out onto Perry Street, so I can appreciate that. I really did change my whole view on the entrance. I like the idea that you've created more space between the entrance from Perry Street, so I think that's positive. So at this point, I like the setup of the drives. I think it's about as good as you're going to be able to get that. I have some questions regarding the path area, what you have showing up above, Mr. Foley, if you could just, that actually what's showing above connects beyond the parking, is that correct?
Correct. There's a match line approximately right here.
Right.
It just continues down here to the end of the property.
And what you're proposing to landscape that and have
Yes,
a path? What's the material going to be used for the path? How defined is that path going to be?
It'll be stone dust, a stone dust path. It will be alternating a deciduous tree with, residential lighting all the way down. Some shrubs with a little turnaround, just a place to walk the dog. There's you say why, you might ask how are we hugging this property line on the west? There's a severe slope in this wooded area up here from the old railroad bed that used to be up there. It goes up pretty drastically. And it would require to change the grade there and to make this more utilized. I guess it would require that we cut a lot of trees down to do that.
Right. So this way here, you're going to disturb that site. You're not going to disturb the site as much
Correct.
by doing this, right? Exactly.
This tree line we're showing here is the existing tree line.
Right. And I think Attorney Flood really addressed a lot of the concerns. My understanding, the sidewalk, you're willing to redo that sidewalk. If we could talk a little bit about it, and I think there was some valid points regarding, it's such a visible corner, regarding some of the architectural materials that you're going to use on the facade of that building. If you could just elaborate a little bit on that.
First, let me state that I'm not the architect on the project. Phil Belanger is. Yeah, and these are really schematic still in terms of their level of completeness. And material selection is something that we haven't even gone down that road yet. So this is really just an attempt to try to give you, more than just a massing model, but just a feel for the architecture of the building. Certainly, these are not construction documents yet. We don't spec out all the exterior finishes, the roofing materials, or any of that stuff. That's where we go next. What I can tell you is that, what we're trying to do is we do want to create these brick piers at the fence line in the front, just to create some presence all the way down to the entrance along Roger Street. And then that'll terminate down here, again, so we don't shut that Perry Street side off from the neighborhood.
Correct.
Because you might note that there is a small retaining wall now on Perry Street, right here. So we had to kind of continue the fence down here and then dead end it into this building, just to prevent anybody from, it's only a couple of feet, but still, it could be a hazard.
And I'm assuming, based on what I'm seeing there with the brick, that's going to be black wrought iron
Yes.
look, and if we did a gate, be similar to that
That's correct.
material? Okay.
As far as the building goes, you know, at this point in time, we haven't even put an outline specification together yet, but certainly, you know, we're open to suggestions, and again, you know, it comes down to the budget. We have to keep that in mind all the time. If you kind of, you know, if the budget doesn't work, then the building doesn't get built. So,
Well, I think it truly is an effort to meet the requirement of neighborhood character, so I commend you for the revisions that were done to the plan, and at the moment, Mr. Chairman, that's all comments I have.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Any other planning board members have any questions, concerns? Mr. Lockhart?
That, the gate on that, is that an emergency exit? Is that
Yes.
how it's classified now?
yes,
And it's gonna have a wrought iron gate?
yes.
Or similar material.
Yeah,
Well, similar
Wrought iron,
material.
similar, yeah.
All right,
they make them out of aluminum now that looks just like wrought iron.
yeah, all right, I just want a clarification on that. And I also want to commend you on what you've done to the previous plan. I think it works much better for the neighborhood. The materials, you're not at that point, you stated, you haven't specified anything.
The only thing we really did, the owner requested that we'd probably go, you know, for durability and maintenance to go with vinyl. And I understand the comment that was both in DPD and that was mentioned here tonight. You know, the typical return that you see on the corner board is a 4-inch, you know, PVC strip. I think we could do something that would be a little more in keeping with what you see in that neck of the woods. So it doesn't, you know, a little bit different than what you'd see on a Cape or a Gambrel or Garrison type of a.
Yeah, paying
vinyl
attention to the details, I think, will help. I would strongly urge you to work with people in the historic personnel, historic board. Very helpful in terms of materials and what will blend into that neighborhood to lessen the impact on the character and add to it, because I think your architecture with your stairs to the sidewalk and things is, you know, blends right in, so materials can really bring that over the top. You mentioned a fence, a wrought iron fence,
Or similar material.
or similar material. Can you show us where that is and just describe the height and anything else that might be appropriate?
Again, it hasn't been designed specifically for construction documents, but the intent would be to have approximately a 4.5 foot brick pier, you know, every probably 10 to 12 feet.
Okay,
Then well, actually, we show them further apart here, but I think we had them architects, you know. We had more of them. But they'll give it a nice look, and who knows, we could probably even use the same bricks from the building. There's no shortage of bricks out there, that's
so
for
it's
sure.
along the street that you're...
Yeah, if, along the street, just in plan view,
Yeah. So,
it's shown on the landscape plan, which is, actually, it's this plan here, C5. Again, we started at the corner of Building B. It comes out here to the back of the sidewalk, continues down to the corner, and then comes down here and dead ends into this building,
okay.
so that we're not closing off all of these front porches to the street.
Right. Okay, and just one other thing, a clarification on the trash. There's no dumpster on this.
No, they're gonna do private pickup.
It's all private?
Yep.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Joe?
Just a couple of quick points. I agree. I love the changes that were made on this plan. I think it's a much more workable plan, and I think it's going to make a better project for you. Just a couple of quick questions. On the what we're terming, I guess, the emergency entrance to the property now, is that going to be marked no parking or fire lane or anything like that? Is there any intent to keep the cars off of that area?
Yeah, one of the things we want to do is, first of all, not create a shortcut through the neighborhood, you
Right.
know, to avoid the intersection. But when we discussed the location of this fence, we were concerned of foot traffic as well, you know, just meandering through here. So we pulled the location of this gate back to the building face, It would be, you know, a double gate that opens up this way. The fire department would have the key to it. Most likely it would open up this way due to the fact that it slopes up and curls back to both buildings. But it would probably be marked as an emergency access. I don't know if we'd do any pavement marking specifically for that, but there'll probably be a sign there. The only thing I didn't really care about this design with the gate back here is that we'll probably get somebody who wants to park in that spot. But I don't know if we can avoid that.
Well, anywhere there's pavement, people will want to park, so that's what you're hopefully trying to avoid, to circumvent the purpose of having that as emergency access. And could you just describe again, I know Attorney Flood had talked about the sidewalks, what is being replaced or repaired and what's being left alone?
As I understand it, this sidewalk is in pretty decent shape. We'll have to reconfigure the entrance to provide handicap, you know, with the new tactile strips that are required now by the handicap code, up to the corner. And this is the area right now where there is some granite curb, but it's been paved over so many times that the pavement's right at the top of curb. And Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the area from here to here.
It exists most of the way down.
Right.
And then there's a portion that I didn't see any, so we'd have to put it
That's
in
the
there.
area
We'd
to
have to
be
install that.
replaced.
So it would be from here to here, new curb and sidewalk according to city specs.
And I agree, I think it just makes sense to have the exit and egress onto Rogers Street, as your traffic engineer stated the last time. If it went out to Perry Street, ultimately it has to dump out to Rogers Street anyway, and that would negatively impact the neighborhood, so I like it the way that you have it right there, so that's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Mr. Jedman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the emergency exit, you know, it's my feeling, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels about this, that should be an exit, a one-way exit. You know, I think the DPD raised that issue. I really don't think it'd have much of an impact on Perry Street to make that a permanent exit, because people who want to go in that direction on Perry Street will just come out onto Roger Street and take the left onto Perry Street anyway. So it's not like we'd be adding more traffic to Perry Street by making that a permanent exit. And I also think it will alleviate some of the issues about cars queuing up on the Roger Street exit, which is something that the traffic engineer raised. He seemed to express some concern in his memo that there may be an issue with cars queuing up in the development trying to exit out onto Roger Street. So it'd be my feeling that that exit should be a permanent. I think it's fine that it be a one-way exit and not an entrance. And as far as the issue of people using it as a cut-through, I can't see that there's much of an advantage to use that as a cut-through, because if you're heading in this direction, I guess that's what, west, east on
Heading
Roger Street?
up
Yeah,
Rogers, that
up
would
on
be
the
east.
map there.
Yep.
You know, why would you take a left into the complex and then another right and another left onto Perry Street
I think he
to
was
cut through?
talking, coming Perry Street, cutting down, and then coming out to Rogers.
Well,
I
yeah,
think
but
that's
if it's
what
a
he's talking
one-way, if it's a one-way exit, then
But I think that's what Jerry was
wouldn't-
referring to.
it wouldn't be an issue. So that would be my feeling on that exit. The trash and recycling, can you explain to me, does that mean private pickup once a week, trash recycling to mimic the city pickup?
Again, that's something that would be in the condo documents, but I believe that was the intent, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken.
We'd hire a private company to come and pick it up. They put them out on a certain day and they'd pick it up.
Once a
because-
week?
Once a week, whatever the company felt was necessary, but it'd probably be once a week, yes.
Okay. Let's see. The stockade fence along the back of the property. Personally, I know this is a matter of personal taste sometimes, but I like to see a vinyl fence there because strictly for maintenance reasons. I think a cedar, a wooden fence might look better if it's well cared for, but my concern is that, over time, that fence may decay. I think a vinyl fence would be something that would be permanent and could, would look nice for years to come. And I think the idea that was raised of the lattice work on the top would be a nice touch as well. How about sidewalks on the site? Are there any plans for any sidewalks on the site?
Not at this time. It's doable. You know, we could throw on either side of this driveway, we could throw a sidewalk that runs across here. We'd lose some green space doing that, but
Yeah.
it's possible.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would, look, James, in the document that was provided by the DPD, there was a suggestion made about sidewalks on the site. Can you give us your opinion on that?
Sure. My main concern was, I think, what was addressed with sidewalks around the site, but then I also, and DPD tends to also push to ensure that those sidewalks come into the site and connect into the site, and wherever that can be made possible, meaning coming off of either Perry Street and Rogers Street, so that if you're walking through the neighborhood, you can easily just, if you live in that development, you can easily just walk into that development. It's something that we look for. With regards to sidewalks internally, it usually depends on a site-by-site basis. In this case, it's kind of a preference type of situation. If the board wants to see them there, you can always ask for them and see how it looks. But again, there is, you know, quite a lot of pavement here, so I think a lot of the green space is somewhat better in this case. But that's,
Yeah.
again, that's more personal preference.
Yeah, probably the green space is a better alternative
Yeah.
within the site. But turning the sidewalks into the site certainly is something that, is
Yeah,
that
I
something
think
you
we can
consider?
we can accommodate that at Rogers Street. Again, back to the question about what that's going to be on Perry Street. There might even be an opportunity up here to put in an entrance, you know, with maybe a
Right.
stair or something.
Yeah, that would be good. And another point that was brought up regarding the throwback to the historical elements of the Old Mother Hubbard. I wonder if there's any way you can, you know, I don't know, construct some kind of a small plaque or something like that regarding using some of the old materials, saying that on this site stood the Old Mother Hubbard. It stunk up the neighborhood for a century or something like that.
It wasn't, I did speak to my client regarding that, and I was going to mention that at the end, that we would be willing to locate some sort of a plaque within the development at some point, but it's the former Cooper Knitting Mill, not Old Mother Hubbard, so that's how we would refer to it, some sort of a plaque in that respect.
Okay, that would be good.
I was going to tell that to Ian.
So as you know, I'm concerned about congestion on this site. I think obviously you've met the city standards with regard to land area per dwelling unit. My biggest concern about that is the fact that, you know, a third of the land area is in this peninsula, this panhandle along the river. That said, you have reduced the number of units by a couple. And I'm happy to see you respond so well to the recommendations of the board. So I think, you know, this, in the way it's been laid out, the way it's been delivered, I think it could be workable. It remains a concern for me, but glad to see that you were able to respond that way. I think this makes it a more livable situation, especially also with the walking area along the edge of the path there. I think that provides a little bit more space for people to get out and unwind a little bit. So I think you've done a good job at making the best use of the space that you had.
Thank you, Steve. I just have a couple of questions or concerns. One, I know we received in our packet tonight, we did get a letter from Captain Weber from the fire department indicating that he has reviewed the new site plan with the proposed emergency access driveway on Perry Street, and the property indicates that it's fine with the fire department. I know we received some comments from some other of the departments, but we haven't received all on a new set of plans. As I stated before, at the last meeting, I think the main thing on this site is basically how we discussed, you know, trying to put the units in the existing building, but we couldn't do so with the smell and the odor of that area. I think by getting that development that's there now out of there and alleviating that odor for the neighbors would be a very big improvement for all the people in the neighborhood as well as the whole city. I think it also is going to help out quite a bit when hopefully in the future we put that Concord River Walk in. I think by having a nice landscape condominium complex there would be a lot better than seeing a vacant mill building sitting there with a strong odor. So I do like the idea of giving us the chance to clean up that part of the neighborhood, clean up that nice Concord River Walk that's coming in the future. I like the fact that you reduced the units, you reduced the height of the units, you brought the streetscape on Perry Street out to the boundary line like we requested. One of the other questions I had, I like the open space, how you picked up the open space. There was talk, I guess one of the main questions we'll have to decide is basically regards to the emergency exit. One of the concerns was, we gate it, they have a key, I have no problem with that personally. I've learned a long time ago on this board, the fire department comes, they don't have a key, they just cut the chain. I learned that a long time ago from Arthur Hammond when he sat here. And on the other end, if we don't do the access way there, I know the applicant said they would do it either way as we requested. I think at the other end, to keep traffic from parking there, maybe on the inner part of the project, we could either put a gate or put a chain there somehow, just so you don't have cars parking there. I know usually that the signs, no parking there, don't work. I know Mr. Flood knows my concerns about that from past projects.
You're right.
Unfortunately, if you put a sign up there, no parking, the fire department doesn't come in, defeats the whole purpose. So we either allow it to be the one-way going out, or if we don't allow it to be that way, then I think on the inner side of the project, which would be the bottom of that road, just chain it there as well, so nobody would park there.
Hey, you just put a couple of posts and chain across.
Yeah, and that way, if the fire department comes in, they're gonna cut them both. I think that way you alleviate parking there, and then when you do try to get that emergency apparatus in there, that's the health, safety, and welfare concern that this board has on our site plan, and we also consider that obviously in a special permit. So I think the main concern is hearing from all the board members tonight, and even hearing from the people who spoke at the last public hearing, which we keep an open mind from what was told to us at the last public hearing, and the comments we received from the department heads, and Ms. Kavanaugh spoke tonight. I think the project is a better project than it was when it came in last time. I believe this matter could work in that neighborhood, but I think the main concern that we have to decide now is which way we want to pick up that exit way. And I believe, Mr. Flood, you said at the beginning, you'd be willing to do it either way. It's a decision for the board to make.
Well, I think the purpose that we propose, the neighbors didn't want anything on
Right.
Perry
I
Street.
remember the testifying,
And I-
the people across the street saying they didn't want it.
And I understand what Mr. Jenner is getting to, but even if it's one way, that's not going to stop someone from coming through the other way anyway. So I think it's better with your suggestion, so no one can park there or use it to put up another small little chain at the end. But with the neighbors' concern, I just assume not have even a one-way going out. That's only because of the neighbors.
Because I believe at the beginning of your presentation tonight, you said you were...
Well, it's
the
your
applicant
decision.
would do it either way.
It's your decision, it's not
Right.
mine.
But I'm just saying, what you said earlier is you were agreeable to do whatever the board requested either way.
Whatever the board, it's your decision, but
Right.
that's why we planned it that way.
Okay. So I think that's probably one of the main issues that would have to address amongst the consensus of the board. But I believe most of our consensus were that is a much better improvement from last time. As indicated, I think if we can get that area cleaned up with that Concord River Walk coming in, I think that it'll really beautify that neighborhood. I know there's difference of opinion in regards to traffic going out on Perry Street between your traffic engineer. What your traffic engineer spoke to us last time is, even if they're on Perry Street, they will get on Rogers Street. I've been up that site several times. I know that site very, very well. I travel there on a regular basis. I know what Mr. Fischetta indicated by being there this morning with that variety store across the street. That is a concern with the traffic. So with the exit coming down a little ways away from that, I think it's a little less concerning. And then if it was up further across the street from that variety store, because then you're going to have more traffic coming out both ways. And I think that would create more of a traffic hazard. So I think the main thing would be for the board to grab a consensus on how we feel we should do that emergency access. Obviously, the way you have it in there, the fire department's in approval with that. We knew that when you were here last time, that you have to get approval from them. And I know that changed your whole design there, because on that part of Perry Street, there's a big, wide-open curb cut. I know when we walked the site back in, I think it was January and February, when the applicant was there, and people from the Division of Planning and Development there, Mr. Topia was there. When you walk that area, as Jerry said, the curb cut's not very high at all, and then you get down where it's wide open. By pulling that all in together, bring that curb cut up, it's really going to beautify the area. So I think the question would be how we want to really address that access way. I know when we were here last time, there was a big concern why you had to come back for the new plan, because that would change the dimensions of this plan. So I think one of the conditions we'd have to discuss amongst ourselves, as indicated, would be how we want to handle that access. I hear both sides of the argument. I think they're both good points. I don't know if anybody has any comments more about what I said in regards to the access. Any of the board members want to say anything further on that, or?
Yeah, I can see both sides of the argument as well. You know, I was going back to the report from the city traffic engineer with his concern about traffic queuing within the development if the only way to get out of the development is onto Roger Street. And, you know, obviously there are times where there's backups on Roger Street at that point. So my preference would be to make it an exit.
Okay.
And deal with the issue of people trying to go in there, you know, in another manner, trying to cut through there to get onto Roger Street. I don't see that it really would provide anybody that much of an advantage anyway, because I don't see it creating that much of a shortcut for somebody to cut through this, you know, coming down Perry Street, to cut through this development to get out onto Roger Street if they're taking a right, rather than just go to the end of Perry Street and take a right.
Well, it could be dangerous because the city's not going to enforce that. It's a one-way, it's a private property. It's not a public way, so, I mean, if it's one way going out and then someone does cut in and you have an accident, where does that put the condominium association? So, I mean, there's some liability issues there, so I just assume keep it closed because of that issue.
James, what's your feeling on that? I know the DPD seemed to be, you know, suggesting that we should make it an exit.
Correct. I think our main point was stemming from what your point is exactly, with just dissipating some of the traffic that would be exiting this site onto Roger Street, to put some of that onto Perry Street. That way it can go either way on Perry Street, whether it's over to Andover Street or Roger Street. With regards to liability, there's, you know, these cases are not new. I don't think in the city there's plenty of other instances whereby you've had one-way entrances and exits from all sorts of different types of developments, and you know, liability is handled in those situations, and usually if there's a one-way sign, you know, that's a proper way to handle it, one-way signage. But again, it was a preference point that we sort of expressed, and you know, it's ultimately up to the board to determine. So
yeah. I also feel like it makes the development more part of the neighborhood too. If the only way in and out is on Roger Street, it just feels like it's kind of an island unto itself. I think it would be a good way to kind of make the development more part of the neighborhood rather than separated from everything.
Well, like
That's my feeling.
Like I said initially, the reason for it was that the neighbors didn't want it. The neighbors in close proximity to the development, and I think they spoke at the last meeting. So, but it's not their decision; it's your decision.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I can certainly understand Mr. Gendron's point about dissipating the traffic, but my feeling was, after hearing from the neighbors, to eliminate that as a potential exit onto Perry Street. I'm not that concerned, I don't think, about the queuing of the traffic within the development. There seems to be plenty of area, unless there's a mass exodus of all the people trying to get out at one time, which I don't see happening. I don't see that really as a major issue there. So my feeling was just following the suggestions of the neighborhood to keep that as a gated exit. That's my personal preference.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I-
Mr. Lockhart?
I feel the same way. I think it should be a gated exit. I think you could have more control over the traffic within the complex if you leave it the way it is and just have the one entrance and exit on Roger Street. And you'll end up with a safer situation.
All right, can we do a vinyl fence? I'll trade you the vinyl fence for the exit onto Perry Street.
And a player to be named later?
Yeah.
Mr. Fischett, you want to say anything else more? I know you were there this morning. I mean, you don't make comments on it. Any discussion further from what's been said?
Just to comment, looking at both the city traffic engineer's comments and the traffic study performed by the petitioner is I don't think there's anything conclusive there. And I have to say, being a neighborhood guy, listening to the comments from the neighbors at the prior public hearing. The petitioner would prefer to see it this way. I think the fire department's comfortable with it from a safety perspective. I think I did comment on the new entrance on Rogers Street, where there has created some separation between that and Perry Street, that I certainly would be in favor of the, and Mr. Chairman, your comments regarding the change, I think, helpful for that particular spot. I think that would help to eliminate that becoming a parking spot, which I could see that being an issue. But having said that, again, I had some of the same thoughts as Mr. Gendron, but like I said, I think sitting there this morning opened my eyes a little bit more to that situation, so thank you.
Thinking back to the last public hearing when this matter was continued, I know we had the comments from this traffic engineer, and I know the applicant's engineer spoke, and I know the people across the street spoke. I'm just trying to refresh my memory on that. I believe one of the concerns from your engineer at that point in time was basically the street on Perry is approximately 25 feet wide. You have cars parked on both sides of the street, narrowing the street down in distance. And one of the concerns that was brought out was, I believe it was the visibility of looking both ways and picking up the pedestrians or the cars coming both either way to see that sight line in regards to the safety. And also the engineer brought out the issue that he thought a lot of the traffic would end up on Rogers Street eventually. And I think the fact of pulling the traffic away from Perry Street and getting it down further on Rogers, so it's not dealing with the project that's on the left of Perry Street now and what's across the street with the variety store. I believe that the entrance coming on Rogers Street may work a little better. And I know the concerns on the neighbors, and they live there, and they see the traffic day to day, and they do see the concerns with the visibility coming out, especially for young individuals who obviously don't look when they're running around. So I myself would go with, I like the idea of the entrance on Rogers Street and gate off both ends of the fire line. That's my comment on that. So, hearing any other questions from the board, we'll entertain, and if anyone want to make a motion, basically we'll take them in the form of two motions, since we have two matters in front of us tonight. One's a site plan, the other one's a special permit. I would request if we could act on the site plan first, if anybody wants to make a motion in regards to that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the site plan with the gated emergency entrance onto Perry Street and the chain, as was mentioned by yourself, to prevent the parking in that area. Also, that condition that the sidewalk be fixed along Perry Street and to turn the sidewalks into the site, provide for the private trash pickup, have utilities hidden from the street, and making the project subject to either obtaining the variance or the building department approval for the
I think that's the only way we can do it.
Any discussion by board members?
I have two items, I'm not sure where they belong. And for points of discussion, regarding the materials, I'd really like to see the applicant work with the historic personnel in the city to get some guidance there.
On a question on that, would there be any objections if we requested the applicant to come back and show us the architectural drawings in the future? So therefore, I think,
Materials specifically.
you know, what you're gonna put up there, I think, for it to really meet the neighborhood character,
Right.
if we could look what the neighbors and everybody else are gonna be looking at, makes a big
I
difference to us.
think we know what it's gonna look like. I think what he's talking about, what materials we're gonna
Right.
use to build it.
Yeah, I think those details really are important here.
So the only question would be, we could either, I mean, how we leave it up, that the materials be done, or at least we could have that come back to us for a review, once you
Why don't we say that we will work with them and consider their suggestions?
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
Just to get their guidance. And the other thing, I really like the idea of your plaque, the historic plaque. If we could get that in there somehow.
There's no, we'll make a commitment to do that someplace
Yeah,
along
okay.
the front, but it's the Cooper Knitting Mill. I
Right,
didn't know that, but Tom told me that.
that's all I have.
So do we put those as, in the form of conditions?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd
like,
with the conditions that Mr. Claremont brought out, he's requesting that that be incorporated by his motion. Any other discussion? Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could add, further on Mr. Lockhart's point, that 6-inch corner boards be used on the materials, rather than, specifying that 6-inch corner boards are used on the corners of the buildings, as opposed to 4-inch. And I'd like to add another condition that says we add a fence, require a fence on the east and south side of the property that is made of wrought iron or similar material, and that we have a 6-foot fence along the west side of the property, 6-foot vinyl fence with lattice, decorative lattice along the top.
The problem with that, Mr. Gendron, if it's over 6 feet, it's not, zoning doesn't allow it, and that would involve another variance. So anything over 6 feet is not allowed.
Okay, fair enough.
I think you've got to consider the budget on this thing too. If it's too expensive, we're not going to be able to build some of this stuff. So,
I think these are important conditions that we're requiring. I think the corner boards will make it, in character with the neighborhood. I think the vinyl fence is important so that it doesn't decay over time. So I think that's a reasonable request. Go ahead.
well, the fence would be a condominium association expense, and if it broke down, then they'd have to repair it. I mean, there's a considerable difference in cost between a vinyl fence and a cedar fence. And I think, we want to do the best for the project, but I don't think we should, there's a budget involved.
Right, but
And we've lost
really,
another unit.
the difference in cost is and you look at
It's considerable.
I know what it is, but when you look at the entire project, it's relatively small, and I think the vinyl fence is going to last longer, rather than to leave it to the condo association that may have financial issues in the future.
Well-
I'd rather see us start with the vinyl fence, so we know we're going to have something there that's going to last. We have a lot of development that goes along the river, that's planned along the river there, and I want to make sure it's kept nice.
I mean, my client just asked the question, can you remove graffiti from vinyl? Can you paint over it if the kids on the other side put graffiti on it? So, I think that could be another problem. 30 years from now, Mr. Gendron, I don't know whether you and I would be around to see it. So I think that's a consideration too. I mean, we got Jane here, she's going to have a walk, and, if kids are on the other side painting on the vinyl and we can't remove it, we're not going to replace it at the additional cost. So what do? You can paint over the wood.
Okay.
Those are my...
I would like to add the condition that it be a 6-foot vinyl fence. I understand your concern about going over 6 feet, so we won't go any further than that, but I'd like to add that condition.
Any further discussion? Jerry, you have anything else? No. Okay. Let's get back to the maker of the motion then. Mr. Claremont, you made some conditions, and there was some discussion by board members. Do you want to include any of those conditions as in your motion?
Yeah, I'll accept all of the conditions proposed by the board members.
Including the fence?
Yes.
Okay. Because the ones that you brought up, Mr. Lockhart, is that you wanted the plaque matter, and also that the drawing renderings be considered with the historic board
Yeah, the materials,
materials?
So-
Okay.
that they
We work with them.
work with them,
Right.
that's all.
Yes.
So therefore, we know what the project will look like?
Excuse me.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
may I request that you just go through those conditions
Sure.
briefly?
What we'll
one
do
more
is,
time?
I'm just going to get the discussion, then I'll go back to Mr. Claremont and make sure we have a complete list. Okay. All right, why don't we start back with Mr. Claremont from the top with the conditions that he opposed with the discussion that we had from the board members.
Right, the first one was the gated emergency access to Perry Street, with the second gate to prevent the parking within that area, to fix the sidewalk along Perry Street and to turn the sidewalks into the site, to provide for the private trash pickup, to provide the utilities would be hidden from the street, and subject to either obtaining a variance or building department approval for the width of the curb cut. I think what was added was also to work with the DPD designer concerning the materials.
Right.
And Steve's condition on the vinyl fence.
So if I could just, so the condition was a wrought iron or similar material fence along the east and south sides of the property, and a 6-foot vinyl fence along the west side of the property. And then there was the 6-inch corner boards on the properties.
And the historical plaque.
And the plaque.
Well, it's not, Rich, it's not historic board, it's the historic people within staff, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to go to the historic hearing or anything.
Oh, no.
Just
you
deal
know,
with them,
They're
yes.
very good at that, and they have a lot of expertise. I think you'd find it helpful, that's all.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a point of clarification on that, the fence on the south and Perry Street, is that as shown? Because it doesn't go all the way down Perry Street. It
Just goes
starts
the
here,
corner.
here, and terminates here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
That
as
makes
shown.
sense.
James, do you have any questions in regards to what that motion was, now that it's pretty complicated?
Yeah, I think I got everything, just one clarification. Mr. Gendron's added condition with regards to the 6-inch corner board, those are the, just for clarification, so when I read it, those are the corner boards of the buildings, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Wrap around the corner.
So there's a motion on the floor with several conditions, and
I'll second the motion.
motion's been made, and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. So the vote for the
Site plan.
site plan is approved. Now, at this point in time, we'll take a vote for this special permit.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the special permit with the same conditions.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's made and second on the special permit. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. So that matter is approved, 5-0 as well. Thank you very much. Good luck with your project.
Good deal.
And thanks for neighborhood input, we
Nice
appreciate it.
job.
And thanks for coming down on a rainy, lousy night.
I have that, I have the picture of these. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I can give it to you. You don't have the other one with you then? Oh, we don't have to pay, we can just give it to you.
Thank you.
Thought over here. And I pushed it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Nice looking.
Losing, I want to read the public hearing. I'm like, here they go. Damn it.
Correct to say it now.
Okay, moving along, the next matter is a site plan review from 14 Perry Street. This was continued from our May 21st, 2007 meeting. The Lowell Planning Board review an application by Jeremy McSorley of Greener Landscaping for a site plan review for a project located at the above address. The proposal includes the demolition of an existing auto body building and the construction of a new car wash facility. The project is located on a lot that is 8,289 square feet in land area, located partially in a traditional traditional neighborhood mixed-use zone and partially in an urban neighborhood mixed-use zoning district. The project requires site plan review under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. This is the former site of Burke Auto on the corner of Perry and Andover Street. May we hear the case For the applicant, please.
Mr. Chairman, once again, James Flood, 81 Bridge Street, representing Jeremy McSorley, who's the owner of the property, and he's with me tonight. Once again, at the last meeting, we had a discussion and a lot of suggestions made by this board. So what we did is we went back to and the very valid suggestions and concerns, so we went back and redesigned this project. First thing we did was relocate the building, which provided for a greater queue on the property. I think there's a minimum of 5 cars on each bay as the building is proposed. We also removed the vacuum area that was shown on the prior plan because there was a feeling that the investment, it's a big investment for what would happen. And by doing that, we won't have the trash that would have accumulated with the vacuums there. We've provided for an additional parking space for employees. Now we have two parking spaces. Snow removal on the site would be off-site. We'd have to remove it off-site, though I think that should be probably a condition. But as I said before, I think with this proposed project, it would clean up this whole entrance to the city. Jack has done the engineering. He's here to answer any questions, but I think you people will agree that this is a much better proposal than what we had before. I have seen the comments just now that I got from James, and I think Jack's provided a new plan that addresses the issue of the entrance from Concord Street. As far as the architectural is concerned, I've given you a copy of the architectural rendering, and I think the side that's shown on that rendering would be the side that would be facing Perry Street. So we have no problem. We would agree to that. And I realize we have to go to if we get approval from you, we still have to go to the Board of Appeals. I know that he raised an issue about the right-of-way. That's existing, and I don't think there's that much traffic there, and people will just have to wait if there was an issue. But Jack's here to go over the engineering on this, and I think this is a much better plan.
Go ahead, please, Jack.
My name's Jack Luigi. I'm from Dana Perkins' office, and I don't know if you've had a chance to review the transportation engineer's comments. I hope you did. Maybe I should just read his first comment. The Concord Street entrance shall be designed as I have drawn on the plans in previous meeting. Currently, the design on these plans is inadequate, not to standards, and unsafe. The driveway is to meet at right angles to Concord Street's curb line. To conform to zoning, the curb lines of the driveway shall terminate with a 2-foot radius curb corner on each side or sloped curb. The drive space at the curb edge shall be 20 feet wide, but may widen thereafter until meeting Perry Street, in which the driveway actually should have a same design as Concord Street entrance. I'd like to respectfully disagree with this comment that the design is inadequate, not to standards, and unsafe. According to the zoning, it specifies, my reading of it, it specifies that the curb cut can be no wider than 25 feet. What I did here was, it's true that the entrance isn't 90 degrees to Concord Street, but I did that for a reason. Because we're constricted with the width of the curb cut, I angled it slightly so that cars coming down this one-way Concord Street would have a better turning radius coming into the site. As far as it being inadequate, it's the exact dimension that's required by zoning. You don't really need a 2-foot radius on the right-hand side of it because a car will never be coming out here and taking a right. This is one way in. As far as being unsafe, I don't understand why he's saying that. It's essentially the same as a 90-degree would be. The cars are coming in there. The only difference is, that I can see, is that it's slightly angled just to allow for the better entrance of the cars. I did do another plan that shows the 90-degree entrance if the board would like to consider that. Oh, and again, on Perry Street, I did the same thing. I kept it at the 25-foot wide requirement. This is what the site plan would look like if we went to 90 degrees and used his suggested width of the, he wanted two 10-foot width lanes with two 2-foot radius returns on the curves, which is what that shows. After you get into the site, then I would widen it up to the 13-foot wide aisle widths. And then coming out, same thing, I'd have to neck it down to the two 10-foot wide lanes with the 2-foot returns. My opinion, this is not as good a design as the other design is, because the cars can make it into the site much easier with the slightly angled driveway. But it's up to the board what your preference is. The access drive to the abutting property. There is an access drive here that allows entrance of cars underneath this building. To my mind and my knowledge, I don't think it's a big high volume use. I mean, I don't think he's got cars going in and out of there all day. So there would be a conflict if a car was here coming out of the car wash waiting to go onto Perry Street, if someone was coming here and trying to get in to that ramp underneath the building. He might have to wait 30 seconds for this car to exit before he could enter. This is the only way we could do this, the only place we could put the building essentially and meet all the required turning radiuses, minimum turning radiuses for the cars. We couldn't slide the building over any further because we wouldn't be able to swing the cars in. You know, if we could slide it over 10 feet, it'd be great, then you'd have that open lane, but in my opinion, this isn't a real big high volume use, so you know, if there is a conflict, it's only going to be about a 30-second conflict while the guy waits for the other guy to get out of the driveway. I think that is it. If you have any questions, I'm glad to try to answer.
One more thing, Mr. Chairman. I know you asked this question last time. What happens if the electricity went off? Well, there is
Any emergency access, yeah.
There is an emergency button inside, and it's controlled by air, that if you just hit a button and the doors would open, so you'd be able to get out.
Thank you, Mr. Flood, I appreciate
Mr. McSorley
that.
did check on that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy, too, I appreciate that. It was just a question I had, and I'm glad you answered it.
Oh, good question.
At this point in time, anybody else, Mr. Flood, want to speak on behalf of the applicant? Anybody else from the applicant? No? Hearing none? Anybody here like to speak in favor of the project? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none? Anybody here like to speak in opposition? Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name's Elizabeth Silver from 40 Perry Street. A few things. First of all, the building that they're planning on putting it, I didn't know that we actually could go right on the property lines. I thought maybe you needed to go to zoning for that, but I'm not sure. The employee spots that you have, how are people going to get to those employee spots if there's cars already to be queued into the car wash? Unless you're planning on going over these bushes or trees or whatever. Because it looks like you need to come through Concord Street to get into those employee parking lots. That other thing that is the town taxi. Those town taxis, half the time, they're already, right before that ramp, they're stuck there, they're parked there. If they're parked there, how are these cars coming out of the car wash? You know, it's gonna be impossible. If one car's coming out, the other cars are coming out of the car wash, and the other ones are coming out of the taxi, or if they're going into the taxi and these cars are coming out of the car wash, I find that that's gonna be kind of hefty. The snow, I had heard that the snow is gonna be removed. Hopefully, once the snow is removed, how about ice and, you know, to freeze up when they come out of the car wash? I'm sure those cars are still gonna have some kind of water on them what's gonna happen in that area? Is there gonna be someone to sand it down, salt or whatever? Because I can see that that's gonna be a problem. The other thing is, when they come out of that car wash, instead of them going over to the right, what happens if they step on their pedal and they go straight ahead? Is there gonna be a wall, a retaining wall there? A reinforced wall, so like that, in case they do go straight ahead, they don't end up in my lot or on top of my cars? That was another issue that I saw. Other than that, I didn't see anything else. I do believe that there's already a problem with the traffic. Perry Street is very hectic. I know that Mr. Frechette was already talking about the previous one, that he ended up on Roger Street, and he saw all of the traffic on that area. But if he goes and sits, for 45 minutes on the other area, Andover and Perry, is just as bad, if not worse. He actually may see actually 3 accidents instead of almost an accident. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition, hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. At this point in time, I'll turn over any questions or concerns that the board members may have. Mr. Claremont, you want to go first?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Just a couple of thoughts. When I looked at the plan, I liked the way that you had redesigned it. I think it made perfect sense in order to queue up more cars, and I like the shape of the driveway. But the engineer seemed to have a concern that it wasn't at a right angle to the sidewalk, and I guess it's because that it creates a problem with the sidewalk. You have an uneven sidewalk because of the curb coming out. Is that the issue?
It would, instead of the sidewalk intersecting at 90 degrees, it would be somewhat less than that. The slope on the sidewalk with the handicap would still conform to requirements, but it would be at an angle rather than at 90 degrees.
Was that the only concern with the layout as it went out to the sidewalk, with the curve of the layout, I should say?
I believe that was what his problem with it was.
Okay. The abutter did address a couple of concerns that maybe you can speak to. One, the employees, if they do park there, it looks like the only way out is to go through the car wash.
Right.
Are they gonna have to get out?
Yeah.
Yep, they would
Drive through
have, employees would typically be there, and if they had to get to those spaces and there was a line of traffic, they'd have to get into the line of traffic and then pull off into the employee space.
Okay. All right. And she was questioning whether on the exit, if there's going to be some sort of a wall or a fence on the opposite side. I imagine on the other side of that concrete pavement that's there as well.
There's an existing fence there now. We hadn't planned anything other than that.
Okay. Right.
I don't know where the boundary line would be there anyways, Mr. Claremont, because that's next to that right of way anyways. I don't know that we could put in a retaining wall. It'd probably be on her property.
That ramp is utilized for what purpose?
I think they
access to
repair
the
cars.
business?
Yeah, I think they repair cars in the building. I drove by there today and there were town taxis out on Perry Street. I didn't see anyone going into the building. I saw some people walking out, but I saw the cars out on Perry Street.
They just utilize that for access and egress,
Right.
basically. Okay. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members? Mr.
Yes,
Lockhart?
I have a few. What are your hours of operation?
I think we said last week, Mr. Lockhart, 24 hours. It's completely automated, so,
That's what I thought.
yep.
What about lighting outside, and how will that impact the surrounding area?
As far as I know, that was just going to be lighting on the building. Do you know, Jeremy?
Well, we'd make sure that all lighting would be faced to the ground and would not, shine on
Yeah,
any other property.
Okay, ADA compliance, that's fully ADA,
Sidewalks.
That's the
and the
sidewalk
sidewalks, I
ramps.
mean, everything, right? There's no issue there at all?
No.
Okay. Personally, I like your idea of angling your entrance that way. I think it would make it safer to get onto the property. I suppose one could make the argument that the street may not be one-way all, I mean, maybe 5 years from now it'll get changed, but I think in this case, I think it improves your traffic flow. And that 2-foot radius on, as you pointed out, on the right side as we're looking at this, is really not necessary. I think it's good the way you have it designed right now. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Fischett, any questions, concerns, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I too would comment that colleagues, Mr. Lockhart and Mr. Claremont had indicated I believe the new configuration and clearly is much better than what we were looking at before. And I have to concur with engineers' conclusion that this is actually provides for a safer entrance onto the site, I think, than what the city engineer is proposing, at least the way I can see it lay out. I do have a question. I am trying to get a handle in my mind on the exit of this site and the right-of-way. Is this a deeded right-of-way that they have?
Yes.
And can, being an attorney, if you could explain to me, can the petitioner impede that right-of-way? It looks like there's a right-of-way over this site, and then this exit.
The right-of-way is to pass and repass. We're not impeding it.
Okay.
If they were parking on it, if Town Taxi was parking on it, like Mr. Silva said, we could have those removed, because they're impeding the right-of-way, but it's to pass and repass. Both have equal rights.
Oh, okay, all right. So the owner of this property, if a vehicle was parked there even,
Would have the right to have it removed.
would have the right to have it removed. It is
Right.
just a right-of-way to...
Right. Pass
Okay,
and
all right. I wanted to get that clear,
That's what it
because
is.
there's subtle differences, but I think that's important to point out. I have no further comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Genman, any
Thanks,
questions,
Mr.
concerns?
Chairman. Yeah, I too think it's a much better proposal. It's, I think it was my idea, actually, wasn't it?
Except my car won't get vacuumed now, Steve.
You won't be vacuumed, no. You have to get your own vacuum. I had a question, though, about the employee spaces. I thought Mrs. Silva brought up a good point. They do seem to be hemmed in down there. Would it make any sense to put the employee spaces further up the drive, on the, on your chart here, on the right side of the drive, so that, I would guess that most of the time you're not going to have 10 cars queued up there. You're probably going to have, on average, a couple of cars queued there. If the employee spaces were further up the drive, closer to Concord Street, they can come in and out of this exit on Concord Street without having to, work through the cars and go through the car wash to get in and out. Does that make any sense?
Well, they'd have to back out onto Concord Street, onto the one-way street, and then head down Concord Street. And I'll just tell you the reason I put them down there, because that's the flatter part of the site, and it's a better area, much flatter area. It's a little bit steep coming in the top of the site there.
Okay.
So I
Plus,
just,
you're going to landscape that up there anyways.
yeah, he's got a lot of landscaping.
Right, yeah, I see that would sacrifice the landscaping. I just thought it might make it more sense. But the only inconvenience is to your employees, so
Right,
I guess it doesn't
but-
really matter.
But I don't think we really are going to have employees there often, because it's completely automated. They'll have to come and empty out the cash box, I suppose, but
I understand,
we
yeah.
provided two because I think you wanted an additional one.
Yeah. The other thing that is not provided for is if somebody wants to get out of line. If you get, somebody queued up, you got a queue up there and somebody wants to get out of line, is there any, even if they had to stay in line, is there any way they can just drive through the car wash without paying, if they had to leave for some reason?
I don't know, I can't answer if they can get through without paying. The problem, I think, is the turning radius. The other plan where we had it built in the larger portion of the lot, we could get it through, but where we moved it down, we can't get a pass-through lane in there, so that's the problem. I think they'd probably have to wait in line and go through it. We'll take their $5, whatever it is. But I noticed that too, but that's the reason for it.
Okay. Looking on this architectural drawing, this is from Perry Street?
Yes. Well,
From Andover Street? Oh, I see.
but that would be turned,
It was gonna look like
Oh, that was the previous design, right, okay. All right, never mind, I was confused.
Just gonna have a different view from Andover Street.
Okay, I'm a little, it seems a little odd that we wouldn't have a way for somebody to get out of line there, but I understand you're working within the constraints of the property, so I guess it's okay. The other issue that was brought up by Mrs. Silva was protection for her property there. What's the distance there between the exit of the car wash and the Silva property?
Their property is adjacent to the existing edge of pavement.
Existing edge of pavement. I see. So there's already a road there,
Right.
or a pass there where cars go in and out? Okay, maybe a 6-foot vinyl fence would go well there? I'm just making a joke. Okay, I think I like the fact that you responded to our concerns, and I think it looks like a good project.
Thank you. I just have a couple. I know you lost the vacuum, but I think by doing so, it makes the project nicer. I think the main thing, you get more cars off Concord Street and onto your site, and I think that's the big concern about getting the traffic on that neighborhood. Obviously, I commend you for getting the more cars, instead of trying to back up onto Concord, back out the Andover Street, you're getting them off the street and onto your site, and I'd rather have them waiting on your site than on the public streets where there'll be more traffic. I think it's a lot safer there. I like the idea of how you turn the car wash, because one of the concerns we had at the last meeting was with the car wash coming directly out to Perry Street. I think it was either Mr. Chenman's or Mr.Fichette's concern of how close they were to Perry Street. They came immediately out, and then they were right on the street. I think this way, you have that extra room to come out. Once you leave the car wash, you have more space before you actually do hit Perry Street. So, looking at the plan, I believe where your entrance used to be, now you're gonna bring that granite curb all the way down to where the new entrance is? I mean, the exit, I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what
'Cause I noticed, I think you had the granite curb, which would be nicer where that was open before, because your exit was there, and you're really exiting right on the street, where now the cars have a little bit of a distance to travel before they get out to the street. And I think that helps make a safer issue. I know when the, excuse me, one of the questions were the employee spaces, and you did add the second employee space. I know it might be a little difficult to get there, but I think that can also be worked out by, depends on what time your employee comes, what time of day, and depending on, you're gonna know what your peak hours of car wash are. If it's open 24/7, I think by coming at certain times, you'd know when to pick up your cash box, when to change your fluids. Obviously, you don't want to be changing the fluids when you have a high peak of cars coming in. People aren't gonna want to really wait. I know the concern is you can't get out a line there. At least you do have those 2 employee parking spots if someone had to pull into one of those areas. The only question, they have to be backing out. I know a question you had before is that you might be willing to work with your neighbor to your left, where you were talking about landscaping, if he could disagree to have your employee park there, if that...
It could work,
If that site is full at the time. If not, most likely, I'd think, most likely employee would probably park on Perry Street, if they couldn't get to it. But I think if you talked about being a good neighbor to the people who own the restaurant across the street, where they have that parking facility, if you could ask if that was blocked, if you could just park there for a short period of time, depending again what time of day you're coming, because you know what the peak hours are for the restaurant, you know what your peak hours are for your car wash. So I think with a little communication one way or another, by what time you're coming, or even speaking with your neighbor, you might be able to alleviate that concern. Let's see. I know she said you're gonna take your snow off-site, which would be a good idea. Coming out of that car project, proposed car wash, if it's the one indicated that Mr. McSorley said before, those are basically, it should take all the water off your car, so there will not be any water or icing from your exit. If there is, I know it'll be the responsibility of the developer to make sure that's sand during the winter months. But if it's proposed to be like the one up on Middlesex Street, when I went through there with my car, I did not have one drip of water on it because of the force they use to clean them up now. I know there's a high-technology car washes, and as Mr. McSorley said, it'd be the same one that Mr. Weezer did on Middlesex Street, and the project, and that one does an excellent job. So I feel by this type of car wash, you're not gonna have as the old type of car washes like Hefner's, where they come out and there's a lot more water coming off the car. The force on these dry them out considerably. And as indicated, I don't have much of a problem with the curb cut coming in on Concord Street. I think it'd be, if it was the two-way, I would see we're doing a 90-degree angle with your idea of curving it just a little bit coming in, as long as you have the curbs cut properly for the sidewalk. I don't see a problem with that. I think you did a good job of picking up all the concerns that we had when we were here last time. I don't know what the economics are by losing the vacuum, but I think you did what you thought was best by our comments to make the site work, get the cars off the street, address the traffic, address the concern at the exit, keep the curbing in line, and less traffic on the site by putting more people on your site instead of on the street. And I think it's a much better improvement. Thank you. At this point in time, any of the board members have any further questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can I just mention one quick thing? I think I did speak with the transportation engineer about the entrance into the site from Concord Street, and I think one of you mentioned that it's possibly due to the possibility in the future of having Concord Street be two-way. And I know it's not necessarily right on the board right now, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that having the curvature of the entrance as it is proposed, should Concord Street ever become a two-way, there could be a design flaw or element that may need to be changed in the future, either by the owner of the property, or it's just something that I think I wanted to make sure you took into consideration before you made a decision on this.
Well, they could come in for a minor change anyways, if that happens. Yeah.
That's
Modify
certainly
the plan if
a
that
possibility.
was-
I just wanted to make sure, if you,
Yeah.
I was just thinking in the future, if it does become two-way, it's already ready if you do a 90-degree entrance. But if you like the curvature entrance, it's obviously your call as a department.
The question they have there is, if it's coming in, say, like this on Concord now, both comes this way, instead of blocking this off here, just widen this one here so you have a wider entrance in both directions.
If they change it, yeah.
Would
we
that be
could-
acceptable? I mean, widen it so it's
Oh,
both
I see
ways.
what you're saying.
And, instead of just being 90 degrees now for both entrances, your entrance closer to Andover Street, how that's curtailed towards Andover Street, your entrance on Concord Street, you can just widen it up so it's curtailed heading Concord,
idea.
so it's wider coming in both ways?
Wide.
Would that be too wide,
Oh, be
Jack?
too wide.
You end up with a wider,
Could make it work. You know,
Yeah, we could make
Would
it
that go
work.
beyond
do that,
25
that
feet,
would
though,
be
if you
even
did
better.
that?
Pardon me?
Would that go beyond 25 feet if
No,
you
we
did
can make
that?
it work with the 25.
That's what
We
Within
would
the 25?
probably have to cut this back, because this is essentially almost 90 degrees now. So what we'd have to do is just straighten this portion of it out, cut it back to the 2-foot radius, and then we would have to extend this one up and just cut that back at a 2-foot radius. It wouldn't be a big deal.
So it'd be a minor adjustment if they did change that to Concord Street?
Mr. Chairman, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially if you have an employee down here that, if it's late at night or early in the morning and there's nobody there, they want to go out the indoor, go out onto Concord Street, and they have to make that right. If the corner there is too sharp, it's going to be difficult to do.
Well, if
so
we
that
can do
makes
it, why don't we do it?
So the employee doesn't have to pay for the car wash? He can back out that way?
I mean, if we can do it, why don't we do it? I mean, if you could do it that way, Joe.
I mean, I'm just suggesting it now, if we keep that in mind, so if that comes back in, we could make that a condition, come back in for minor modification, if you have no objections to that?
Well, he thinks he can do it on the plan right
We're
now.
doing it right
do it
now.
on the
I'm
plan
saying,
right now.
if they turn it into a two-way street.
Oh, you can do it, yeah.
redesign the
Okay,
entrance
yeah.
So
that
we're just saying, if it does come in to a two-way on Concord Street, could you bring it in for minor modification to
Right.
change the entranceway?
Exactly. That's
If we put that in a condition tonight, would you have any questions with any problems with that condition to come back, for us to look at that condition?
No, that would make a lot of sense.
Okay.
Why not just do it now? Why not just
Well, I
take
think the
that one side of the driveway and make it less severe now?
Like-
And that way it accommodates if it goes two-way, and if somebody needs to get out of the car wash onto Concord Street, they can do that.
It wouldn't work that way now. If you wanted us to do that, we would have to go back to the other
The 90 degree coming in.
90 degree.
Right.
Because of the constriction that we have of the 25 foot.
Okay.
Like, I think what you're saying is, if we're gonna do it now, we might as well go back to what the traffic engineer said and do the 90 coming in straight.
Right.
And your argument is, you want the angle
This
because
is-
it's the
this is
one-way on
actually
Concord.
On a one-way street.
Right.
That's why I designed it this way, to give these cars a little
Yeah.
bit better turning radius.
Makes sense.
Coming in the site. If it turns into a two-way street, it would be easily fixed. We would have to just extend this side of the driveway up, go to the 2-foot radius here, and then this side of the driveway would have to come straight up, and we would have to flatten that curve out right there. If it ever went to two ways, that's
So make it a
the fix that we
condition.
would have to.
So we could get back to,
The way it is now, it's a much better swing into the site for the one-way traffic.
and basically, we want to be easier traffic access to get onto the site and off the public roadway.
Off Concord Street, right?
Right. Okay, so I think maybe if we could, to getting back to my question, you wouldn't have any problem with us putting a condition in if Concord ever does go to two-way, that we can come back from minor modification
Okay.
to turn the turning radius coming out to the site.
You would entertain it, yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Thank you. Any further questions from any board members?
No.
Hearing none at this point in time, entertain a motion to approve or disallow the site plan.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make that motion to approve the site plan with the conditions that the applicant maintain the walkway and sidewalks along the access and egress area, remove the snow off the site, and if Concord Street were to change to two ways, that they come back before the board to modify the access.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. The site plan is approved, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, sir. You're welcome. You're gonna need a shop vac this to flood. Moving along on the agenda, new business. Any of the board members have any new business? Hearing none. Any old business? Coming on to other business, we have notices from abutting towns. In our packet, we received notices from the surrounding towns. Any of the board members have any questions and concerns with those abutting notices?
Hearing none, motion to place on file?
Motion is made to place on file. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. That carries 5-0 in favor. We'll be moving on, general correspondences. Do we have any board members have any correspondences to update us on? Or James, any correspondence at this time from Division of Planning and Development?
At this time, no, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Moving along, we have our Zoning Board of Appeals legal notices. They come to us for recommendation only. I believe in our packet, we only have, appears to be one this evening. And these are the matters that'll be going before the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is scheduled for a public hearing on June 11th, 2007, at 6:30 PM here in the City Council chambers. This is an applicant petition is for a special permit. The applicant is Sign Design, Inc. for Lincoln Technology Institute. Property is located at 211 Plain Street. The zoning is a commercial high-rise. The petitioner is requesting to reface existing internally illuminated wall and freestanding double-sided signage for Lincoln Technical Institute according to the zoning ordinance, section 6.3.29D. We have a couple of pictures in our packet. This is down on Plain Street where the existing sign now has, it says Bally's and A.J. Wright. Appears that the applicant is going to be trying to change the sign. They're going to have to change part of their own and part of the existing sign that's up there to put their new matters in. And the applicant goes on and says that they would not be altering the existing height, length, style, or color of the existing structures. I believe what they want to do is just put a new sign on the existing sign that's there with the new property owner. I believe one of the property owner's signs is coming down as well to, yeah, I think it said here, we have, A.J. Wright will be replaced with their signs at the same time. They'll be on the same panel, but they're gonna change A.J. Wright's and put their own signs. I believe what happened was there's a new owner in that project, and they want to put his name on the sign instead of what the existing owner was. So the sign's existing, it's just to change who's gonna be on the premises. Any board members have any questions or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, normally we refer these to our DPD sign person for recommendation.
This is directly across the street from the Lowell car wash. If anybody has any questions or concern where it is?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we should. It's a little confusing, and it's hard to totally understand.
So make that in the form of
For
a
a
motion that we,
recommendation from them.
that we refer it to the DPD sign expert.
I'll second.
Motion is made and second that we refer to a DPD sign expert, which their recommendation will be forwarded to the zoning board of appeals for the board's consideration before their public hearing. Yep. Motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Board votes 5-0 in favor. Any further comments from the planning board? Members, if not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.